In this video we will be looking at reviewing fractions, adding and subtracting. So what you'll need is you'll need this worksheet, the Did You Hear About? The substitute will have this, and you'll also need a blank piece of loose leaf paper. So you'll need the worksheet and a blank piece of loose leaf paper. We'll start by putting our heading at the top of the blank sheet of paper. Remember, you're putting your name right here, not my name. This is where we're putting our heading. Like so. Now what I want you to do is we're going to copy all our problems onto the sheet, and we'll do all our work on the blank sheet of loose leaf. So we'll start with number 1. We're going to do 1/4 plus 3/5. And we're going to copy it just like we have it right there. Like so. Now, the way we're going to do these is we need to first have a common denominator. So the 4 and the 5 need to be the same number. That bottom number has to be the same. So to do that, I can go to my multiplication chart, and I'm looking for 4 and 5. And if I go down 4 and 5, do I see the same number? Well, if I just track down 4 and 5, I have 4 and 5, 8 and 10, 12 and 15, 16 and 20, 20 and 25. So they both have a 20. So that can be their common denominator. 4 and 5's common denominator is 20. So I'll make my new denominator 20. So I'm going to build these new fractions. And the idea is, what do I need to multiply 4 by to make it 20? Well, 4 times 5 is 20. And then whatever I do to this bottom number, I have to do the same thing to the top number of that fraction. And then we do that multiplication. 1 times 5 is 5. And then now I'll do the same thing with this bottom fraction. What times 5? 5 times what is 20? So I'm going to be multiplying. So 5 times 4 is 20. And then since I'm multiplying the bottom times 4, I need to multiply the top times 4. So 3 times 4 is 12. And now we're ready to add. Now we're ready to add these fractions. I add only the numerators. So when I'm adding them, I know my denominator is already going to be 20. The denominator will stay the same. And then I'm going to add only the numerators. So when I add 5 plus 12, I will get 17. And that's our answer. Box our answer. Okay, let's try number 2. 5/6 minus 4/9. And what's that going to equal? Well, we'll need to have that common denominator. So I look for, so I'm going to go down the 6 column and the 9 column until I have the same number. So I'm looking at 6 and 9. And when we see the same number, we know we have a common denominator. Well, they both have 18. So I'm going to use 18. So we know we're turning both of them into 18. Now we just got to figure out what we're multiplying by. Well, 6 has to be multiplied by 3. So I'll multiply top and bottom by 3. And 6 times 3 is 18. And then 5 times 3 is 15. 9 has to be multiplied by 2, so I'm going to multiply top and bottom by 2, so 4 times 2 is 8. And now this problem is subtraction, so I'm going to do 15 minus 8, and I know my denominator is going to stay 18, and then we'll do the 15 minus 8 is 7. Okay, 2 down. Just finding that common denominator, changing that numerator accordingly, and then adding or subtracting depending on what the problem says. Box our answer. So let's try number 3. Oh, these are lettered. So this is A, This is B. And then this will be, so that was A and B for the first two, and then this will be C. So we're going to copy the problem. I'm doing letter C, 9/10 plus 1/2. 9/10 plus 1/2. So we want to go down our 10 column and our 2 column till we have the same number. So here's my 2 column, here's my 10 column. Well, when I'm looking down, the first number I see that they have in common is 10. 2 has a 10 in its column, and 10 has a 10 in its column. So that will be our common denominator, is 10. So we know we'll turn both of these into 10. And then what do we have to multiply to make that happen? Well, the top one, to keep 10 at 10, I just multiply by 1. And the bottom one, I'll multiply by 5. So 9 times 1 is 9. And then on the bottom, 1 times 5 is 5. Now our problem says to add. So we'll add our numerators. 9 plus 5 is 14. And my denominator stays the same. And then we'll need to turn this into a mixed number, which we'll do by saying that it equals equal to 1 2/5. To do that, we first we simplify 14 over 10 by dividing. We can divide top and bottom by 2, so we get 7 over 5. And then 7 over 5 becomes 1 2/5. There's 1, 5, and 7, and the remainder is 2. Okay, let's look at letter D. We have 2/3 minus 5/12. 2/3 minus 5/12. So now we're going to do that same process where I go down the 3 column and the 12 column until I see a common number. So my denominators are currently 3 and 12, so I'll look down those columns. And the first number I see that they have in common is 12. They both have a 12. 3 has a 12 and 12 has a 12. So our common denominator will be 12. So we know we're going to end up with 12 as our denominator. So we'll go ahead and write that in. Now what are we multiplying by? Well, 3 times 4 is 12. And then for this bottom one, 12 times 1 is 12. Now let's do our multiplication. 2 times 4 is 8. And 5 times 1 is 5. So then we'll subtract 8 minus 5 is 3 over 12 stays the denominator. And then I'll need to simplify, so I can divide both top and bottom by 3, and I'll get 1/4. And there's our answer box, these answers. So now what I'd like you to do is pause right here. Don't pause quite yet. Let me set up letter E for us. We want to stack them vertically like we've been doing. Even though they're written horizontal, go ahead and stack them like we did in the first 4. So for E, it's 3/8. 3/8 plus 9/16. Letter E right here, 3/8 plus 9/16. So I'm going to write that. We're going to do E 3/8 plus 9/16. So once you have it written, pause the video and try it on your own and see if you can get this on your own. And when you come back, we'll do it together. Okay, so hopefully you took the chance to pause and try this on your own. What we're going to do is the same process. We'll find that common denominator by looking down the 8 and 16 column. So if I go down here, I have my 8 column, and I have my 16 column. Let's see when we see a common number. Oh, they both have 16. So that will be our common denominator, 16. So we know we're going to make this a 16, and we'll make this a 16. Well, 8 times what equals 16? 8 times 2 equals 16. So we can do our 3 times 2 and we get 6. 16 times what equals 16? Well, 16 times 1 equals 16. So I can do 9 times 1 is 9. And now I'm adding these. Not 6 plus 9 is 15 over, denominator stays the same, 16. So let's do one more. You'll try this one on your own. Remember, you want to write them where they're vertical. So 7/10 on top, 1/5 underneath. 7/10 minus 1/5. So let's set it up. We're going to write it vertical. 7/10 minus 1/5 equals. So pause right here, try this one on your own, and then you can come back and we'll do it together. Okay, so hopefully you just pause and try this on your own. So our goal is again to find that 10, the common denominator by looking at the 10 and the 5. So I'll go down the 10 and 5 column. Here's my 10, here's my 5, and let's see if we can find a common number. Well, they both have 10. 5 has a 10, 10 has a 10, so that'll be our common denominator. So let's go ahead and set up our common denominator of 10. Now let's do our thinking. I need to multiply both of them. So 10 times what? 10 times what equals 10? Well, 10 times 1 equals 10. Then I do my 7 times 1 and I get 7. Now I'll do 5 times what equals 10. 5 times 2 equals 10. So 1 times 2 is 2. Now we subtract. 7 minus 2 is 5, and my denominator stays the same. I can simplify this one by dividing them both by 5, and that will equal 1/2. So there's my answer. 1/2. Okay, so your assignment for the rest of today is to complete this worksheet. Try to get as far as you can, and just work your hardest and do your best. If you have any questions, you can reach out to Mr. Cortez or Ms. Carter. Well, thank you very much, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.